I had an analysis this morning. I see a Jungian analyst, and I said to him, yeah, I was picking up the book by Adam Phillips last night, The Cure for Psychoanalysis, and I only got past the I didn't get past the introduction because I was so stuck on this quote that Milner made about Winnicott. I'm not going to explain to you who these people are, but actually what Phillips' whole book is about is that a psychotherapist might be doing something while we're studying psychotherapy. And it kind of doesn't matter the model you use. You can use cognitive behavioral therapy. You can use DBT, psychoanalytic therapy, psychodynamic therapy, interpersonal therapy, relational psychodynamics, internal family systems, Virginia Satir's parts work, Bowen family systems, Hakomi. I mean, yeah, you get the point. And I'm in a consult group right now where most of the clinicians have been practicing as long as me. And we're trained in so many ways of working with humans. And I find the conversations to be so rich and so deep because, like Adam Phillips was pointing out, and what his point really is in The Cure for Psychoanalysis, is we can start to feel really loyal to our cult leader, meaning the person that we're learning from has the answer for psychotherapy. And this is a real phenomena that we'll do not just in the psychotherapy field. I idealize people a lot, especially when they're clever in a way that I'm not. Or they make me change my point of view. I'm one of those people that enjoys having my point of view change. Some people hold tightly to their point of view. I'm somebody that likes when someone goes, did you look at it this way? And I go, oh, wow, cool. But then what that does is it makes me doubt my own mind. I'm like, oh, that means that what I thought, sorry, I got some spit. Maybe I can't trust my thinking. And I think maybe that's what us therapists are learning how to do, is to trust ourselves without becoming addicted to certainty when we're working with a client. And it can be tricky. I had a client yesterday wanting a lot more resolution in their couples therapy. What is this therapy for? They said. And I brought that into my own analyst this morning. And I said, what is therapy for? What is it for me? What is it for my clients? What is it for other people? And he's a supervising analyst at the Jung Institute. And he's been trying to talk me into supervising, which I probably am going to start doing next year. Again, I supervised about 10 years ago. But boy, I do think if I had a strong opinion about something in terms of the training of young therapists, it's that they sit with this question. I sit with this question every spring and allow myself to tolerate the uncertainty and allow myself to be curious and grapple and wrestle and not settle on one answer, but maybe start to settle on my value system of what is therapy for? I even got intrigued by how we were framing the question. God, everything that we create these days has to be utilitarian. We are just so bad at being. So therapy's for doing something? Is it? Is it for doing something? Or is it for discovering something? I do hold in mind that therapy is a change relationship. It is a unique relationship designed for change. And that is my definition. I don't need you to adopt my definition. The second question I would ask is, how do you know therapy's working? I mean, I can watch a couple in front of me. So 60% of my caseload are couples and 40% are individuals. And I'm started to learn that they have to tell me what they want, because I might go from where I sit, that relationship and the way you have it set up doesn't work for me. So is therapy working when I get them to a place that would work for me? or get them to a place the DSM says is healthy, or get a client to a place that the culture says is healthy? I don't think so. Uh, I think when you've worked in any sort of community mental health setting, uh, this really becomes apparent. And when I was a trainee and an intern, early days, I was working with folks much closer to the poverty line. I was working with folks that are much lower functioning in their lives, and many more symptoms. So many symptoms that you couldn't possibly even know how to envision this life for them. So you had to ask them, what do you want? Right? It was some of the most creative work, because I didn't know what I was doing. I still don't know what I'm doing, but I do know what I'm doing more. I know what I'm doing insofar as I know a lot more about the brain and the nervous system and what creates change in the brain, and how the brain is this miraculous predictive organ. And we do some funky stuff in these predictions that oftentimes have us making meaning of our lives and then behaving in our lives in ways that have either been influenced by really painful experiences or influenced by the culture that we've been raised in. Sometimes those experiences were painful or not painful, but they shaped the meaning that we make of our lives. And so therapy for me is about freeing you up from all those predictions to start to make new meaning of your life and therefore new choices. But when people come in, that's not what they're saying to me. They're going to usually give me something really specific. For some folks, it's I just want less anxiety. For other folks, I feel betrayed by something my partner did. How do we work this out? I have a big decision to make. How do I make this decision? I keep repeating the same pattern in relationships over and over again. Why? And how do I stop? Right? I have to follow what they define as working. Right? And along the way, once I find out their answer to what would be working for them, some clients will say, oh, I'm going to refer you on to another therapist because I'm not particularly good at that thing that you're doing. And then every therapist has their own way of working with those different objectives that a client brings in. And we get caught in following our cult leader. And I think that's what Milner was picking on Winnicott over. I think she felt strongly that perhaps your cult leader might have you wrestling with some blind spots. You may not fully allow yourself to know that you can't work with everyone. I was in a coaching training recently, and I was a little put off by how much antipathy this very famous guy who does solutions-focused therapy had towards therapists, or he does solutions-focused coaching had towards therapists. He called therapists overpaid problem obsessors. But when I get really irritated by someone, I do this bizarre thing in my brain, which is I don't just freeze and cut them off. I'm like, you're irritated for a reason. Why are you irritated, Tracy? And there were two reasons why I was irritated. I was irritated because there's truth in what he was saying, and I was irritated because I thought he was being very unskillful and also just as polarized and unskillful at his own cult following. Because I drew a lot from some of the things he had to share, but I also saw all the shortcomings of his model. I'm like, you wouldn't have been able to work with DID the way I have. You wouldn't have been able to work with someone with trauma the way I have. You know what I'm saying? So all this to say, pay attention to the ways you get caught by your cult leader. Call yourself out all the time. And I would say, as a good practice, every spring, ask yourself, what is therapy for? How do I know it's working? And what was the other question my analyst asked me this morning? And why did you become a therapist? But I'd love to hear from you, whether you're a client or you're a therapist. What is therapy for? How do you know it's working? Where are you following a sort of rigid cult-like person and why? What inside of you might be doing that? Just like with the solutions-focused coaching guy, if you actually allowed yourself to be a little less irritated and be curious, like if you're a CBT person that can't stand psychoanalysts, why? Right? Or you're an analyst who can't stand CBT people. Why? What's that about? Um, and then the bigger piece that I think other people speak to better than I can, which is the framing itself is shaped by our culture. And as my analyst and I concluded in our session today, what therapy has a hard time seeing is that, I wrote it down how he said it. I really want to find it. Hold on. I use a remarkable tablet to keep notes. I didn't write it down. That therapy sometimes thinks it is the best cultural technology for working with meaning. But we had a long conversation about salsa dancing today too. And I said, what if salsa dancing is the answer? And that's what I would also pose to you. How do you know? How do you know? I think that we can get a little high on our horse. And I love that there's people that are trying to get more folks to go to therapy. I had a client years ago. I said, I think you'd be better off going to see a massage therapist because you don't really want to make use of therapy and talking. I just think there's so many ways to heal. Going and laying on the grass every day for an hour with your face in the dirt could be very healing too. So I'll pose that question to you, this question. Where is it hard for us to look at our own hubris as therapists and think that therapy, there's this young woman that had an Instagram campaign a few years ago. She wanted me to participate. And it was something like, therapy is cool. And I'm like, I don't want to participate in that. Therapy is cool. I'm a therapist. I love doing it. But I am not one of those people that thinks everybody needs to be in therapy. Sorry. I trust people's journey and how they're healing. I like therapy. I think it's a really cool philosophical place. And I've healed a lot there, and it's done a lot for me. And I also think salsa dancing could be a site of healing, and a drumming circle could be a site of healing, and painting and making art and dancing in a dancing circle with your elders are all just as valuable. Sorry, is that sacrilegious to say?